This week we're going to talk about image optimization for the internet, accessibility to your web and how it deals with images and other things, the visual attributes of your page, and image attribution. As well as there's a discussion board that is going to talk about your identifying the purpose for your website. So let's first take a look at the template that I have employed here. And the first way to know how big your images should be, I pulled up a sample here. You can see that sometimes the template will tell you specifically what size it is looking for. And you should always look for this, because either if you don't put in the correct size, either it's going to chop parts off, or it's more likely going to squish things out of its height, width, XY proportion and make images look funny. So I can see here that if I want to put in this new header image, because this is the image that is in the template, so I want to change that and put my own image in there, I can see that I need a header image of 1920 by 850. So what this is basically telling me is that if I put in an image that's a different size, it's going to stretch or squash that image to put it into that space, which is going to make the image not look very good. So that is one reason why I need to resize the image. The other thing that I see students do a lot is they will take really huge images. For instance, if I look at, this is the image, it's from my Flickr account that we're going to look at. The large size is 6,000 by 400. And so people a lot of times will think, well, let's just go ahead and use that 600 by 400 because I want the best quality. Maybe people are looking on a Mac Retina display. Who knows? But what happens here is if you put in an image like that, that is a really, really large image. It's got a very large file size. And what's going to happen is you're going to force people to download a lot more data than they're actually going to see, because your phone or your computer, it's not going to actually be able to show 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. It just is not capable of that. So it's going to cut it down, but you, being a jerk, have forced these people to do this, download this data. That's not very nice, is it? It's also going to make your website slow down if you have these great big things. So it's really important for the visual look so that the website doesn't squish and squash and change your XY proportions. It's important so you don't force people to download and use all their data. You know, if I have a limited amount of data on my phone, I don't want to force people to, or I don't want to look at websites that are going to suck up all my data in about 3 images. Also, I want my website to load lickety-split. If it's not going to load lickety-split, people will go ahead and hit that button and go to a different website that will load very quickly. So you lose viewer attention very quickly. So those are the main reasons why it's really important to optimize your images. We'll come back to this guy here in a little bit. Let me get him out of the way. So I'm using as a demonstration here Adobe Photoshop. However, if you look at the bottom of the module, I've included some free tools. Adobe Photoshop is available for you in the communications lab at Texas A&M. It may be available at Texas A&M San Antonio. It may be available in other locations as well. I also think if you're going to be in kind of a web development business, it wouldn't hurt you to get an Adobe Cloud subscription. However, on the other hand, if you are a poor college student, and I do remember those days of ramen noodles with frozen peas, there are great free tools. I highly recommend GIMP, which is like it's a open source, and it's for free. I put the link in the module at the bottom, and it's very similar to older versions of Photoshop. But since I do have Photoshop, and this, if you go out for a job interview, this is a tool that they're going to want to know if you can use or not. I will be demonstrating with the proper tools. So you can do whatever you want, whatever you have access to, but I will be demonstrating here. So again, here I have this image. I've downloaded it, and going back, remember that it said that I wanted an image size of 1920 by 850. So I can go in here to my crop tool, And I can actually put in the 1920. My computer's running a little slow here. I got a lot going on. 1920 by 850. There's my image size, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crop that. I could have moved that around, but I actually kind of like the position of that eagle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this as it's really common if you're going to use an image rotator carousel or something in your web page. Almost always they will have a proper size that you should put things in. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'll save it on my desktop. Okay, now I want to talk about my options here for quality over quantity. The lower quality that I go, the more pixelization or archiving that I'm going to see inside of here. So you can see that it's a balance. You have low quality, will give you a smaller file size. Right now I'm looking at 45.6 kilobytes. If I take this up to higher quality, I'm at 173 kilobytes, which is, you know, almost 1/5, a little less than 1/5 of a megabyte. It's really not that much, but I don't think I need all that much quality, so I'm going to go really for about a medium. Another option inside of Photoshop is I can go in here and I can save for web, which is a legacy tool, but I love this tool. And so you can see here, you can see the archiving that I'm talking about if you look closely. All of these squares here, that's 0% quality. But what happens with the JPEG is it starts throwing away pixel information. For instance, if 2 pixels are pretty close to each other in color, the JPEG compresses it down and says, I don't need to differentiate between this pixel and that pixel. But then you can see that you start getting this smearing going together. I can see though at this size, also you can see the smudging around the edges. That is again caused by that archiving. It's caused by the compression in the JPEG. A JPEG is a lossy image, which means you lose a lot of information. So I am going to go and take this up some quality here. Let's go up to medium. You can see that archiving went away. I'm at 56 kilobytes, or excuse me, I'm at 34 kilobytes size, and I still see some smudging around his wings that I don't like. I want to have nice crisp wings, so let's go up to high. My smudging around the wings went away, and I'm at 83 kilobytes, which is still a pretty small image. My image size is still correct, so I'm going to keep that. My done button is down here, so I'm going to go ahead and save onto my desktop. Okay, so now that I have that, let's talk about how to get images over inside of WordPress. So in this case, I have a place where I can add a new image and upload it. But the other way that I can do that is to go into my media library. So I am going to find my media, which is right here. Go to my library. Had I used that add new, it would have opened that up to the same kind of window here. there's only one media library. It doesn't matter if you open it up from the Customize or if you open it up from your dashboard. It's all going to go to the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and add some new media, which is going to be down here, and it's saying, do you want to drop something in there? So I could drag and drop, but since I have not a lot of space inside of my movie, I'm going to go ahead to my desktop, and I should have my Eagle header right here. You can see the maximum upload is 1 megabyte. So that is there, that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Customize to put that into my header. I could have added it here, but what I want to do, so I hit add new image, it opens up that. I'm going to pop that baby in there. Okay, now this is also important. You'll notice in the rubric I asked you to have a alt text. You can have a description also. What I want you to do here is for sure put an alt text. What the purpose of the alt text is for accessibility, and we're going to get a little bit more into accessibility, but that is because many people who are getting information from the internet are either low vision, have or completely blind, and they're using some type of assistive technologies. Something is reading them a website. If something is reading somebody a website, it's going to read this alt text. If somebody has their images shut off on the page, it's going to actually pop that alt text in there so people can see what the images are if the website, or if their images are shut off in their browser. Inside of the description, this is a good place where you can put attribution, and you should always put attribution for your images. Even if you are the photographer. For instance, I am the photographer for this image, so I'm just going to call it Now I'm also putting here information about the licensing for the image. In this case, I don't want anybody to take my image. I don't want anybody to download it or use it for business or anything like that. So I'm putting that in there. All rights reserved. We're going to talk a little bit about the Creative Commons and different types of licensing. If you're not a photographer and you don't have a lot of your own images, how you can get some to use. But in this case, this is my own image. And even though it is my own image, I am putting the attribution in here. And I would like you to always put in attribution for your images. Especially important if you're not the photographer, but still important if you are the photographer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select it. Now it is asking me if I want to crop it. And the reason why that is popping up is because that banner or that heading image had given me that specific size, and I cropped the image down myself so it doesn't have to be cropped here. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the cropping. You can see that it's giving me the outline right here. And I can remove this one. Yeah. I'm not going to deal with that right now because I have to figure out how to remove it. But let's save and publish here. Oops. You can see why it's not showing up. Currently I have no images, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new one there. I'm going to put that there. The information is kept with my image. I don't have to, even though I use the image more than once, the information is stored with the metadata for the information for the photo in the media library. So once you put that information in once, It's set. There. Now it should pop up because it's a current header. I put it down in a old header, I guess. There we go. So now my image is up there. I want to make a quick note here back to cropping. I hear some people talking about when you are making something, making an image, do a save as, well, no, not a save as, excuse me. They don't even have it here anymore. Sometimes people will ask me, well, what should the resolution be? Should it be 72 pixels per inch, or should it be 95? Or now some of the Retina screens are, you know, more than that. You know what? It doesn't really matter, because basically you are making a layout that is pixel by pixel. So this is 900, or what was it, 1980 by 280 or something like that. It doesn't matter if the resolution is going to be displayed in 72 pixels per inch or 1000 pixels per inch. Whatever it's going to be, it is still that pixel size inside of the display. So it's like having a thing of Play-Doh, a ball of Play-Doh. Are you going to have a very thick wad of Play-Doh, or are you going to smash it down and spread it out and have a thin but higher, wider pancake of Play-Doh? Doesn't make any difference. So don't worry about the pixels per inch resolution, just worry about the actual size, because that is how it fits into your design. Okay, back to licensing and attribution. If you do not have a stock of your own images that you took yourself, you may be wondering, where can I get images? So a good place to go is actually Flickr. And the reason why I like Flickr is because it has Creative Commons licensing. So for instance, if I do a search in here, I did a search for beaches, and I can go in here and I can look at my licensing that I have. And generally, I'm not going to want to use an all rights reserved image, because I don't have permission to do that. But I can say I want commercial use, means that I'm not going to do any modifications. I'm not going to crop this image. I'm not going to change the color or anything. I want to just use this image as it is. I can do commercial. If I might do some cropping, I might do some shifting of the image a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and use this commercial and mods allowed, which is generally what I want to do. So with that, I have these images that are popping up. So I can go ahead. I really like this image. She has some rights reserved. And I put in a link inside of the module that talks about how to use attribution of Creative Commons images. So if you're going to take things off of Flickr, please look at that and look at how you must do your attributions to put into the description. This is some rights reserved. If I click on this license, I can see, but basically it's going to be Beach is my title, or Hawaii Beach with Palm Tree by Anda with the little smiley face, with this Creative Commons license, and it will tell you the style. This is a CC by 2.0. The attribution page that I give you will tell you the format for the licensing or for Creative Commons that I want you to use. So go ahead and take a look at that. Really, that is all we wanted to talk about today. Making sure that you have at least in your website, at least 3 images that you went ahead, web optimized. Put your accessibility in there. You put your alt tag, which is what matters in this. Oh, accessibility. Or that is one thing that I want to talk about for a second. I made a bad sample for accessibility so we can see where you can start getting into doing damage in your WordPress. Let's say you have a website first off here, I squished up the site, the picture. That's one of my pet peeves, is when things lose their height and width. But for accessibility, generally everything that we have to worry about, or a lot of what we have to worry about, is taken care of by the people who design the templates. The templates, if you're using something by a good template developer, which, yeah, most of them are pretty good. If you start going pretty far down the usage list, you may get some that are bad. But generally, a lot of the HTML code and CSS code is very clean. It's good for accessibility. But we can still screw up even a good template by doing certain things. So something I would say, let's imagine that this is a column right here. And things that are my pet peeves are if you don't have enough contrast between your letters and your background. For instance, I see this all the time, drives me berserk. It's pretty. It's pretty to look at these pale gray letters on a white background, but there's not enough contrast for somebody who's a little bit older, like me, for instance. So we start getting this lack of contrast, and people that need the contrast to see will not actually be able to read your web page. So always make sure, generally you'll see on the professional sites, the very well developed ones, you'll have black text instead of this light gray. So I could go in here. This is not how I would change it on my website, by the way. I'd have to do that with cascading style sheets, which we'll get into later. The other thing that is an issue is readability. For instance, if you are wrapping something around, and when something goes down to a smaller device like a phone or tablet, and you don't provide enough space, it is very difficult for someone to read if you don't have enough line length. Especially if they start breaking in the middle of words and things, bad things can happen. So you need to make sure that you're looking at your lines of text for readability. You have to look at things like how well written is something. We'll get more into that as we get into Yoast. But sentence length, because remember that your website, especially if it's something that it has a lot of information, may be read by people who are not English as a first language. They may be using a translator on your site. If you start getting all of this really complex, difficult to read sentence structure, your people are going to have a hard time with translators. People with lower reading levels may be more challenged. So your writing style is something to consider when we're getting into accessibility. But really the things that I'm going to be looking at are things like contrast in color with the text in the background, making sure that you don't get these short little lines that break. You don't want your lines of text to be too long either, because then it becomes difficult to read. That's why a lot of websites have columns that kind of break things down into good readable chunks. But just start thinking about that. But the main thing this week that I'm going to be looking at is the alt tag that is on your image. Your alt tag that's going to be on your image is what the assistive technology will read for somebody who's visually impaired. Because actually you don't have the ability at this point to change the color in your text on your template. But we're going to get to that. So I want you to start taking a look at accessibility, keeping in mind that not only people who are fully sighted are going to be the only people who are going to be looking at your website. You have to be thinking of everybody, especially if you're working for somebody that is a business or a government institution. Okay, that is enough of my rambling. You have a lot of reading to do this week and a couple of discussion board and your peer reviews. So get busy. Let me know if you have any questions. Send me a text. Give me a call if you get stuck.